If you're ready for the best month that the astrology of this year has to offer, then you need to get ready for this week. This week, we see two major ingresses. We see Venus ingressing into Taurus and Mars ingressing into Aries. And this is going to set us up for the best astrology of 2024 from the very end of April to the very end of May. Why this is important is because it's easy for us to use astrology as an excuse as to our downfalls or to use it to blame why things aren't going our way. And although there are going to be challenges with this, as there is with anything in life, the astrology is good this time. The astrology has so much to offer over this next month, and it starts this week. Use that time. Take advantage of this energy. Don't waste it. And I'm going to explain exactly how to do that in this week's horoscope. Welcome back to the Astrology Report. My name is Cam White. This time we're talking about April 29th through May 5th of 2024. We have a really exciting week ahead, but real quick announcement. Starting sometime next week, I forgot what day exactly, I'm going to be raising my prices. And if you have been a client of mine over the past year, you are going to be locked in at that $325 price. I'm not raising the prices for you guys. This is going to be for new clients only. So if you want to get locked in at that $325 price, this would be the time to book because next week the prices will be going up. The other thing I want to open up with on this week is something about giving your all. If you are doing something new, you're doing something that you're afraid to do because it's on the pathway to whatever your goals are, it's easy to feel afraid or to feel like you look dumb or stupid. And I just want to kind of express something that I'm going through. With all of this music stuff that I'm doing, do you know how many times I feel dumb or look dumb or I feel like, what I'm doing isn't worth it? I feel it all of the time. And I just want you guys to know, if you feel dumb or if you feel like, your goals are too far away and that you can't get out of your own way to get them, just know I'm in the same boat as you. There is nothing more cringe to me than making TikToks of my music and trying to put myself out there. It's a very humbling experience and it's very challenging, but I know that that is the pathway I have to take in order to hit my goals with music. And it's one of those things where I've had a lot of success in astrology. And so I'm used to things being somewhat easy. And this is a really new challenge. And I just say this to say I'm not just sitting here, telling you guys this is how you should do things and things are easy for me. I'm currently going through trying to start something new, and it is challenging, and I feel like I look dumb and things aren't going my way the way that I want them to. I'm not seeing this instant success that I want to, and I know it's not going to happen. I know, though, if I'm consistent and I still do the thing that I know that I need to do, I stick to the plan, I know I'm going to see the results. So if you are wasting this time, if you're wasting this energy saying, I want to do X, Y, and Z, but I'm afraid of this, I'm afraid of that, get out of your own way. Jump in the boat with me. We can look dumb together, and we can get to our goals together as long as we remain consistent and we get over ourselves and we humble ourselves to do the things that we know that we need to do, even though we might be dumb, even though we may not understand it, even though it's going to be challenging. And the reason I even say that this week is things get really good in the astrology this week. Use that. Let's not waste this time, at least just for this month. If you want to complain about August and August being bad, August kind of sucks in a lot of ways. It's the most frustrating month. Feel free to complain about it. I think you have every right to complain about August. You don't have a right to complain about this next month. But we start this week off on Monday with the moon in Capricorn, first making a sextile to Saturn and then making a square to Mercury. After the moon separates from the square to Mercury, it is then going to trine Uranus and it will trine Jupiter. And we have our first highlight of the week, and that is Venus ingressing into Taurus. The earth energy is here. Earth energy being grounded, physical, tangible goods. Water is very, emotional, and air is very intellectual. Fire is very passionate and angry. Earth is very stable. It's calming. It will center you. And this Monday, we have so much earth stuff going on where I want you to feel grounded and I want you to relish in it. When the moon's in Capricorn, I always suggest hey, it's a good time to just kind of focus on the work that needs to be done, kind of have some emotional detachment from things. And sometimes that is healthy. I'm not saying to do that all of the time. When the moon's in Cancer, be emotional, feel things. But when the moon's in Capricorn, take yourself out of the situation. As the moon makes a sextile to Saturn, I think this is very helpful and beneficial for all right, I can take time to be a little bit more serious about things, not be so emotional. And again, with Saturn and Pisces, if Saturn is about responsibility, discipline, maturity, and even things like burdens, it's in the sign of Pisces, the internal, the spiritual internal. And there's this part of ourselves that has to harden up here, that has to be very realistic here, that has to be very disciplined here. And the moon making that sextile is just very constructive to it. The only issue is the moon makes a square to Mercury in Aries. While Mercury is now direct in Aries, we have this fresh movement of feeling forward. All right, this is what the plan is. This is where we're going towards. Very exciting stuff. The moon making a square to Mercury is just kind of if Mercury in Aries kind of wants to go now, go, it's on top of the North Node. The moon in Capricorn squaring Mercury is just going to be kind of this internal frustration of like, okay, like I can only go as fast as I can. I can't make decisions based off emotion, or I have to be a little bit more rational. So that moon squaring Mercury is going to be kind of this internal struggle of like wanting to go really fast versus like, what do you have the time for? And where do you really need to take this a little bit more seriously? But the moon will then make a trine to Uranus and then a trine to Jupiter. What's nice about the moon trining Uranus is, again, some sort of a breakthrough, some sort of an innovative, like fun thing that happens that helps you along your way. Because then after that, it trines Jupiter. So it's like, oh, I, did this, and that. I tried these little experimental things, and then lo and behold, solution. Love the moon going from Uranus to Jupiter via a trine. I think this is a lot of just like fucking around and finding out, but in like the best way possible. But why Monday is so good with the Earth energy is Venus ingresses into Taurus. Venus is about pleasure, love, romance, connection, fun. She is in her home sign. Now, why I like this is because it's going to be Venus, the Sun, Uranus, and Jupiter all in that Taurus house. You have to know what house Taurus rules in your chart to really look at how this is going to be affecting you. But Venus is the ruler of Taurus, and we have Jupiter there. Jupiter has been expanding this area of our lives. Jupiter has been looking at our beliefs about this area. Jupiter has been giving us opportunities in this area. And when the ruler of Taurus comes into her home sign, it like a good thing gets better. I think as Venus goes into Taurus, it's going to be easier to relax. It's going to be easier to enjoy things. Like Venus in Aries, it always reminds me of Mr. and Mrs. Smith. It reminds me of Mrs. Smith, where she's like, I'm a woman and I'm like a CIA spy and I kill people. And sure, it's not ladylike, but we're all ladies and we kill guys. Like, it's very just kind of like, oh, like we're boss bitch women kind of a vibe. And that's great. That's all fun. But Venus going into Taurus is like, I can't not think about like charcuterie board in the park, red wine, like real indulgent things. But as Venus goes into Taurus too, where we can have fun, where we can have pleasure is really solidified. And the big thing about this week and going into the rest of this month is work hard, play hard. Work hard and enjoy the fruits of your labor. That's why this month is so good. And yes, you will have to work hard, and yes, you will experience some challenges with that. But like, you get the effort and then you get the reward. That's the whole vibe of this week. We then move into Tuesday, and on Tuesday, the moon at the very last degrees of Capricorn will make a sextile to Mars. It will then ingress into Aquarius, square Venus, conjoin Pluto, all while Mars then ingresses into Aries and Venus makes a square to Pluto. So we have two highlights on Tuesday that are really important to talk about. But let's go over the moon real quick. The moon making that sextile to Mars in Pisces while the moon's in Capricorn is like this last kind of moment of understanding where you're at, because Mars moves into Aries on Tuesday, and this is where the work hard energy comes from. But with the moon, with Mars being on top of Neptune, there was a lot of confusion, a lot of uncertainty of where to go. The moon in Capricorn making that sextile to Mars in Pisces, I think, is just having that connection of like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Oh, this is my next step. Oh, this is the direction I get to go in. And then the moon moves into Aquarius. It will make a square to Venus and it will conjoin Pluto. It's hard to talk about this without talking about Venus square Pluto. On a more geopolitical level, the thing that I'm really paying attention to, at least not all the time, but like just it's in my awareness, is the whole bird flu scare. Like, in fact, I saw an ABC News article talking about, very small traces of bird flu were found in milk. It's Venus and Taurus squaring Pluto and Aquarius. At some point, we're going to eat the bugs and we're going to be happy. And then how are they going to do that? They have to scare us around, things like dairy, things like, meat, and et cetera, et cetera. So I look at that Venus squaring Pluto as kind of like, oh my God, food is scary, meat is scary, but it's, for other reasons, even though it's probably not that big of a deal. But I think as the moon goes into Aquarius, makes that square to Venus and conjoins Pluto, if we take that to a personal level, there is this kind of like fear around things. The moon going into Aquarius is our emotions are more connected to society, ideas, what connects us all together, the intellectual framework that holds society together. And as the moon conjoins Pluto, there's a power trip going on here where, do you let everybody's opinions affect you or do you not let that affect you? Do you see a different perspective around the people that are around you, especially too, whatever house Aquarius rules? I think this is a really important thing to look at here where it's like, can we have a perspective shift with this Aquarius stuff? Because the moon will square Venus. And it's one of those things where it's like, are we going to let like fear or change ruin a good thing for us? Does that make sense? I recently watched the Civil War movie, and something that I thought was really interesting that they did a good job about. I kind of want to make a video about my opinion about it, but in the first opening scene, there's like this fight going on. Like, there's like a bomber or Parker, edit that. Sewer slide exploder. How about that? Hopefully that the censors don't come after me after that. But then after that, they're at this bar and everyone's partying and drinking. And it's like one of those things where it like I've heard plenty of stories about this in like wartime areas where everyone's having a really, really good time. Like it's kind of like, or for example, I think in like even in Germany, it was after Weimar Germany, and it was like during World War II. But there'd be like sex parties and all these other things going on while like the bombing of Dresden was happening. Like people were like experiencing like a height of pleasure because of all of the pain that they were going through. And the reason I bring that up is like maybe like it's not going to be that extreme, but I just look at the moon in Aquarius conjoining Pluto and Venus, squaring Venus. While Venus is squaring Pluto, is like, are you really going to let fear or you're going to let these like power struggles like ruin a good time for you? And I think there is something important to kind of like, okay, read the room a little bit. What's the vibe here? But I don't want you to like not enjoy yourself or not have fun because, X, Y, and Z is going on, or because this is the political situation or the economic situation. Like, don't let that ruin it, because that's the thing about Pluto. Like, Pluto is fear at the end of the day. And how much are you really going to let fear control and dictate everything that you do? And like with everything in Taurus, it's just kind of like, yeah, don't do that this time around. But then Mars ingresses into Aries. Mars, fights, conflicts, energy, drive, ambition. It is going into its home sign. This is Aries. This is a cardinal sign. So it's about beginning. It's about initiating. It's about that spark. Let that spark go. This is the start of something. Now, the hard part about Mars and Aries is Mars rules fights and conflicts. It's in its home sign. It's going to be easy to get into battles. It's going to be easy to get into fights. You're going to feel an area of your life get really inflamed or really angry or very, very intense. And that's because Mars will eventually conjoin the North Node. But the thing is here is like, put that energy in, put that drive in. Like Mars in Pisces conjoining Neptune is very like, oh, where am I going? What am I doing next? And before that, Mars conjoined Saturn, where it was like, fuck, I'm stuck here, or I've got some problem I have to deal with here. That's not the case this time around. Mars in Aries is like, go, go, go. Have that drive, have that ambition. And what's cool about Tuesday is Mars goes into Aries, and we also have Venus in Taurus. That work hard, play hard mentality. I want you guys, I can't emphasize, like sometimes I wish I could just like choke the camera of like, please use this energy. Do not let it be an excuse for things to go wrong. And again, does that mean everything in your life is going to be perfect? Of course not. But what this is suggesting here is that the energy is saying, hey, if you put a lot of ambition and work and effort here, you're going to have success. If you also have pleasure, if you're also looking to do fun things, you're going to find that and you're going to be able to enjoy things. So do those things even in the midst of problems that you're going through, of struggles that you have to deal with, or challenges that you're facing. Like, don't be afraid to like still put in your best effort and still have fun at the end of the day. Like it's all, and again, it's all about your attitude. Then we get to Wednesday, and as the moon's still in Aquarius, it will only be sextiling Mercury. And at the very end of the evening, the moon will be squaring Uranus. So Wednesday's a little bit boring. Again, I think we're just going to be still off that high of Mars moving into Aries and Venus being in Taurus. But the moon in Aquarius, sextiling Mercury in Aries, is again conversing or talking and communicating with the people that are around us. Mercury is in Aries. We're kind of charged up. We're saying it how it is. No, we're not here to, we're not worried about offending anybody. And so I like this for kind of like just talking with people and getting like really amped up. But the moon will make this square to Uranus at the end of the evening, where this just seems like if you have social plans, like they might fall apart. There's some sort of like, trying to hold things together, and there's a disruption that causes some issues. So just kind of expect a disruption to whatever it is that you're doing Wednesday evening. And then we get to Thursday. And on Thursday, the moon, very early in the morning in Aquarius, will make a square to Jupiter. Then it's going to ingress into Pisces, and it's going to sextile Venus. I love this. And then we get our next highlight for the week, which is Pluto going retrograde. There's a lot to talk about there. But first, the moon in Aquarius squaring Jupiter and Taurus seems like reconciliation to me. It's kind of like, for example, I've made this analogy before. You want to go out to eat with friends. Some people like meat, some people are vegan. How do we handle this? The moon squaring Jupiter is kind of like, all right, what's going to be the best for everybody and everything? Is there like a restaurant that serves both vegan and, meat options, whatever that is? There's some sort of reconciliation of like, how do I see the bigger picture? How do we, get the best out of this situation? Can we see the good side of things? And then the moon moves into Pisces, and it sextiles Venus and Taurus. This is nice. What I like about the moon going into Pisces this time around is now Mars isn't there. We're only dealing with one malefic in Pisces now. So as the moon goes into Pisces, Emotionally, we're a little bit more connected to our internal parts of ourselves, probably a little bit more sensitive to things that we don't understand that we're sensitive to. Like, for example, have you ever been in an environment that is like very loud and chaotic and you can't like, it's kind of like overstimulating and you're just kind of like almost overwhelmed by it? I feel like the moon in Pisces can deal with that a lot of the time. It's like, I'm just so like a sponge of energy. As the moon goes into Pisces, we might be feeling more of that sponge of energy. And I think it's going to be important to have those boundaries. Again, the moon will be making its way to Saturn in the next day. So that's when we will apply those boundaries. But I think the moon in Pisces is kind of like just feeling the energy and being like absorbing it. And it sextiles Venus. Like whatever you're doing on Thursday, if it's doing something good, if it's doing something fun, enjoy it, absorb it. I think this is a really nice transit. The only bigger thing that we have going on is Pluto stationing retrograde. Now, again, this is more meta. This is more geopolitical, more economic. What's more important about Pluto going retrograde is that it's going to go back into Capricorn just in time for the next election. What could go wrong? I think Pluto going retrograde is, if Pluto moving direct is, again, introducing these new concepts of where we have to change, where transformation lies, where, you know, power struggles are, where our fear is. Pluto going retrograde is kind of like, okay, you've been introduced to all those things now. Are we like committed to the fear, or are we committed to the change? Are we committed to, you know, spiraling, or are we committed to transforming ourselves and our relationship to this area of our lives? And I think that's really important. Now, on a more geopolitical level, again, I'm looking at this bird flu thing because that's kind of interesting. That I read about it a couple weeks ago, but now I'm seeing like mainstream articles kind of come up about it. That's kind of what I'm looking at. And then, of course, there's like all the fucking war stuff, which doesn't matter. We're going to World War III at some point. Don't worry about the day-to-day actions that get us there. We're just getting there at some point. But yeah, Pluto going retrograde is definitely a little bit of a vibe shift on the like bigger spectrum of like your life and like how things are. But I think what's more important is that moon in Pisces sextiling Venus and Taurus. Don't let some news article ruin your day. And then we get to Friday. The first highlight that we have on Friday is Mars making a sextile to Pluto. Love that. And the moon during Friday will be conjoining Saturn. The other note I want to make about Friday is this is the day Neptune hits 29 degrees Pisces. Neptune will be at 29 Pisces for a long time this year. I think it gets to like 29:55. So it almost goes into Aries starting essentially on Friday. Neptune moves into Aries officially next year, very beginning of 2025. Why I think this is important is Neptune is like media, it's confusion, it's illusion, and it's at this like last degree, and you know, Saturn's still there. There's just something to like, that's just something like I don't even want to talk about. I just want to put a note, like Neptune's at 29 Pisces right now. If things are a little confusing, if things are a little wonky, if the truth or where things are at is a little all over the place, that's why. And when Neptune ingresses into Aries with Saturn, this is definitely like a big reality shift. Like, oh, Saturn conjoining Neptune is like everything's cool and everything's chill. And Saturn and Neptune go into fucking Aries and it's like, whoa, that's not what I thought this was. Anyway, Mars makes a sextile to Pluto as our first highlight for the week. Mars is in Aries. We're charged up. We're amped up. It's sextiling Pluto. Feel the power. Like, how many times in your guys' life have you done something you were afraid to do, that you didn't want to do, but you did it anyway, and you didn't even acknowledge yourself for it? Like Mars in Aries sextiling Pluto is like, you might have taken that one little step, but again, you're thinking 30 steps ahead that you don't even acknowledge that first step. And it's that first step that's always the hardest. And I just look at Mars in Aries sextiling Pluto as like, the opportunity to feel empowered with our actions is extremely high, and don't waste that. Like, for example, let's say you're overeating, you're unhealthy, all that stuff. In your health journey, the biggest step is the first step, and it is also the hardest step. But but when you take that first step, you still say, oh, but I'm not here, or I'm not at this goal, or I'm not at this place yet. It's like, acknowledge your first step, acknowledge the power of initiation. Acknowledge what you're doing right now. And Mars, and it's like, you have to wear that energy, like feel empowered of like, yes, I am doing this. Yes, I am going for it. I might be at square one, but I'm fucking doing it. And I feel good because I decided to even take the step to square one with whatever that is. Feel the power on, what is this, Friday? The other thing is, while the moon's in Pisces, it will be conjoining Saturn on Friday. And again, this comes back down to our emotional discipline, our emotional boundaries. Again, a lot of Saturn in Pisces is like, all right, if Sagittarius is all the external dreams, all the external views that we have, and all of our hopes and ambitions, Saturn in Pisces is like, it's time to do the internal work. It's time to take that area of our lives seriously, be more matured, be more disciplined, not just be so emotionally empathetic to everything to where we're just absorbing the energy of the world. The moon in Pisces is sensitive to that, but it's conjoining Saturn where it's like you have to draw a boundary. Like you have to be like, like, hey, I can only provide so much empathy. I can only provide so much sympathy. I can only provide so much because then it starts to take away from me. And I also look at the moon in Pisces conjoining Saturn as like, let's get real here. Are we just going to be emotionally all over the place, or do we have to take something a little bit more seriously and be a little bit more mature about something? And of course, that's going to be dependent on where Pisces rules in your chart. But the moon conjoining Saturn is just taking an area of your life a little bit more seriously. We get to Saturday, the moon, while it's still in Pisces, makes a sextile to Jupiter. It will then conjoin Neptune. And then by the evening, it will ingress into Aries and conjoin Mars. Saturday, moon is in Pisces, sextiling Jupiter. Like, okay, cool. I took this a little bit more seriously. Now I can enjoy the fruits of my labor. Moon sextiling Jupiter. Then the moon will conjoin Neptune. What the moon conjoining Neptune is good for is like, again, watching movies, getting more into media, getting more into entertainment stuff. But the moon conjoining Neptune isn't good for just like having clarity on the situation, like whatsoever. If you're lacking that clarity, I think on Saturday, that's the moon conjoining Neptune. What it is good for, though, is like sometimes you don't need clarity. Sometimes you need delusion. Like, for example, like if you are on your way to a goal, if you have a big goal that you want to hit, or you're trying to change something in your life, like if you're trying to think rationally here, you're maybe not going to get there. Like sometimes you literally have to think a little bit more delusionally. And I say delusionally is like a catch-all term that's more trendy right now. Maybe not I don't want you to be schizophrenic about a situation, but the moon conjoining Neptune is like, be open to ideas, be open to a new narrative, be open to a new story that you can create for yourself. And that's what I talked a lot about in that video I just put out about, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Moon conjoins Neptune, get spiritual, get woo-woo, manifest, dream, like literally, I think that what's cool about the moon conjoining Neptune is when it comes to manifestation work, like if you literally picture what it is that you want or that you want to achieve, you bring that feeling into your body and you act like you want to feel what it feels like to have those things or to achieve those things. And that's something I do all the time with my music. When I'm producing music, I'm constantly thinking about being in a crowd of 10,000 people with people just yelling my songs. And I get on this, I don't even do drugs anymore because I just get high from that. Like I'm literally just like, I literally get so high from that. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but it's fucking true. And then the moon goes into Aries and conjoins Mars. Like, get that high, feel that feeling, visualize something and bring that feeling to your body because the moon goes into Aries and conjoins Mars. And it's like, you get gassed up and then you go. That's what that is. Moon going into Aries is like, I'm emotionally charged up. I'm going to put my all into this. And it's moon conjoining Mars, where the issue with moon conjoining Mars is being a little bit more emotionally angry and kind of lashing out and just being like, it's kind of like when you're just kind of on some, I always think of Parker, put this GIF in. I always think of the Vince McMahon walk when the Vince McMahon walk, just play it here. That is like the vibe of the moon and Aries conjoining Mars, and Aries is just very like, fuck with me. Like, see what happens. Like, I'm on top of the world right now. I'm the shit. You should have that feeling. Most of you are literally like spiraling in negativity or depression all the time. You've done enough of that. Like, why don't you feel like you're the shit at some point? Like, wouldn't that be nice? That's what I want you to do on Saturday is like enjoy things, be creative, and then feel like you're the shit. It is going to be easy to be more emotionally charged up and a little bit more angry, but it's also going to be really good for initiating, taking action, like putting your effort and your all into something, like emotionally investing, like whatever work it is that you're doing, like after you're done, you feel tired, you feel exhausted because you left it all on the field. That's what that's good for. And then we get into Sunday, the moon will be conjoining the North Node and Mercury, and that's all we have on Sunday. I think this is just, again, turning up that dial to 11, pulling an all-nighter, saying, you know what, I want to keep going. I want to keep going. I want to keep feeling this energy. I'm on one right now. That is what that's good for. The moon conjoining the North Node can feel very overwhelming. Like, I know there's a lot of people that are kind of like, again, like, oh my God, I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling anxious. Like, yes, you might feel that. Again, try to put that into some area. But also with the moon conjoining the North Node, just know it's like, okay, you don't have to go 210 miles an hour. You could go 135 miles an hour though, right? Like you don't have to step on the gas and absolutely just rip it, but let's definitely break the speed limit here a little bit. Let's definitely push ourselves here a little bit. And then the moon is going to be conjoining Mercury. And there's this kind of click moment of, again, Mercury's been retrograding in Aries. What do we want to start? What do we want to initiate? What are our battle plans? Mercury conjoined the North Node and stationed direct last week. We are now moving forward with things that we had to revisit and review. And that moon conjoining Mercury is kind of like, sweet, here's the actions that I've taken with the plans that I've been trying to set out to do. And it's kind of like, just like, it's not feedback necessarily, but just kind of like, connecting dots of like, what is the plan and what action steps have I taken for Sunday evening? So then you can get ready for next week. Here's the deal with next week. We're still Venus and Taurus. Venus is only going to get closer and closer to Jupiter. It's only going to get greater and greater and greater. And Mars is still going to be in Aries. This vibe continues into next week, but the two highlights that we have next week is Mercury conjoining Chiron again for that third and final time. I'm actually looking forward to this. As well, we have the new moon in Taurus. I think the new moon in Taurus is very calming. Again, work hard, play hard. This is kind of like I put my effort and my all. I worked a really long day. I'm working 80 hours a week. And then the new moon in Taurus is kind of like, doing a sauna, doing a spa, relaxing. Like, it's like, if you're going to it reminds me of like professional athletes that like not only take their workouts and their health and their work super seriously, they take their recovery very seriously. And that's how I would look at next week, is like, if you're going to put your all into everything, you need to make sure you have that recovery phase too. And that's what I got for you guys this week. I absolutely love you guys to death. Make sure you like this video if you enjoy it, and comment below. Let me know what you're going to do, what your plans are for this week. And if you haven't already, subscribe. I'll see you guys later.